Hello everyone and welcome to our new video. So this video is a continuation to our previous video where we understood how to create the dynamic slaves of Jenkins over the Kubernetes cluster. So in this video, this is the second part. If you have not watched the part 1 of this, I will suggest you to go through the part 1 of the video in order, and this is because this is in the continuation of the previous video. All right, so that being said, let's start with the installation now. In this video, we are going to install the Docker containers, and we are also going to install the minikube and kubectl. So basically we are getting our infrastructure ready to run the Jenkins inside the Kubernetes cluster. Now minikube is a single node Kubernetes cluster. So if you are looking to install on a multi-node Kubernetes cluster, basically there is no difference whatsoever in the command or the configuration. Whatever configuration I am running here, the same configuration will be run on a full-fledged Kubernetes cluster as well, without any configuration changes. Just the way that the slaves comes up on multiple machines, that will be different, but it doesn't have any changes on the configuration on the installation. That being said, let's start now. And the very first thing I would like to do is I will be setting up the hostname. Now setting up the hostname makes it easy to identify what the purpose of the machine was. So I will use hostnamectl set hyphen hostname, and I will be doing Jenkins.unix cloud fusion.n. Now this is an optional step. So if you want to if you just want to skip this, that is also fine. But I like to start with the hostname setup. So just run this command. All right, now it's asking us to authenticate. So we will be switching to the root user, not as the vagrant user. So we have become the root now. We are doing this installation on Ubuntu 18.04, a long-term release. Okay. And the same steps will work on the higher version of the Ubuntu as well. So let's quickly set up the hostname. We will say hostnamectl set hyphen hostname, and this will be Jenkins.unix cloud fusion.in. All right, once you have set up the hostname, make sure that you make a entry inside the etc host file so that the hostname gets resolved to an IP. So I will be making an entry inside this, and I will say Jenkins.unix cloud fusion.in. Okay. Now once you have done this, save this. All right, this has been saved now. You can verify if it resolves to IP by pinging this. So it's getting resolved. So hostname has been set up. Now next I will be installing the Docker on this VM. So I can say curl. We will be using the script which is provided by the Docker itself, the bash script. It automatically detects the operating system and install it. It's available at get.docker.com. Just pipe the output into the sh. So curl acts like a command line browser, and it basically downloads this script from the get.docker.com, and we are outputting it to the shell because it's basically a shell script. Just run this command and it will automatically install the Docker on your VM using the apt. This will install the latest version of the Docker on your VM. So let this install, then we are going to start it. All right, so Docker has been installed now. If you scroll up, you will see that the Docker Community Edition latest version has been installed. Now, once the Docker has been installed, we can start the Docker service. We can say systemctl start Docker. Also, we can do systemctl enable Docker. Now we are running this over the vagrant. This VM has been created using the vagrant. If you have not used vagrant before and don't know how to create a VM using the vagrant, we have a video on that as well. Just go through our channel. You will find a video over the virtual machine creation using the vagrant from scratch. Okay, follow those steps and get it ready. Now, since we are having the vagrant user with us, now you should not run the Docker from the root user because of the security issues. So better is that we run from the vagrant user. So what I can do is I can switch to the vagrant user. Now, before I switch to the vagrant user, I will need to allow the vagrant to have the permission over the docker.sock file. Because if the vagrant is not having the permission, if I run the docker info command right now, it will give an error. Let me show you quickly. If I switch to Jenkins, if I switch to vagrant user, okay, run the bash command. If I run docker info right now, you will see it gives me an error saying that it is not having the permission on the docker.sock file. If I show you the permission of the docker.sock file, it is basically owned by the root user and Docker group. So in order to solve this issue, what we can do is if I exit out of the vagrant user, go back to the root user, I can modify the vagrant user. Okay. Vagrant user is not a part of the Docker group. So what I can do is I can modify the vagrant user and make it a part of the Docker group. So I can say user mod -ag Docker and vagrant. Now once I run this command, the vagrant will be a part of the Docker group. Okay. And then it can run the Docker command. And we are going to do a couple of more things. We are going to go inside the etc passwd, and we are going to change the shell for the vagrant user from sh to bash. Okay. Also, currently, if you go inside the home directory, and if you see there is no vagrant user home directory. So what I can do is I can create a vagrant user home directory. And once I create the vagrant user home directory, I can change the ownership to the vagrant user itself. So I can say change ownership, vagrant, and to vagrant. All right. So this sets up the vagrant user home directory. Now what I can do is I can switch to the vagrant user. So I can say just switch to the vagrant user. All right, now I'm inside the vagrant user. So what I can do is if I do pwd, I'm inside the home directory of the vagrant user. Now what I can do is I can run the docker info command to verify if the docker permissions, docker related permissions are there with the vagrant user. So if I run docker info, so you will see that it is able to run the docker info without any error now. Okay, this means that you have successfully installed the Docker on your VM. All right, and it provides you all the information about the Docker. Now, once you have installed Docker on your VM, next we are going to install the MiniCube. Okay, so for installing MiniCube, let's exit out of the vagrant user, back to the root user. And this time, what we are going to do is we are going to download the MiniCube from the, it's basically a binary. So you can directly download the MiniCube binary on your system using the curl command. Now I have run this. All the commands you will be able to find inside the Git repository. You can find the link to all these commands, download links, configuration links inside the GitHub repository. I will be sharing the link with you inside the description. So go ahead and check out our GitHub repository for replicating the same environment. Now, if I show you the size of this MiniCube, somewhere around 66 MB in size. Once you have done this, you can install it. Just say install MiniCube, and we want to install it in the USR local bin MiniCube so that it's available to all the users. Now, once we run this, it will install the MiniCube. Once you have done this, we are now going to start the MiniCube. But remember that just like Docker, you are not going to run the MiniCube from the root user because of the permissions and the more security that it provides from a standard user. So basically we are going to run it from the any of the standard user. So I will be switching to the vagrant now because I will be running this through vagrant user. Let's clear this. Now what I can do is I can start the MiniCube. So I can say MiniCube start. Now once I start the MiniCube, it will download the images and create a Kubernetes cluster. Now those of you who are not using MiniCube and rather want to use a Kubernetes cluster, you can set up your Kubernetes cluster. We have already covered this inside one of the video on how to create a multi-node Kubernetes cluster. Then you also have an option to set up the Kubernetes cluster over the over the cloud using the EKS, AKS, GKS, those type of Kubernetes cluster. Any of the Kubernetes cluster you can create. The same set of commands will work there as well. Okay, there's absolutely no difference whatsoever in the configuration. So let this install. All right, so our minikube cluster has been installed now. Okay, and it's basically a single node Kubernetes cluster. It has the latest version of the Kubernetes running. Okay, now once the minikube has been installed, so we can check the status of the minikube using minikube status. It will show us the status of the minikube. So minikube is running right now. Control plane is up and running. We are going to install the kubectl. The kubectl basically is a command line tool which helps us interact with the Kubernetes cluster. So for installing kubectl, just use the curl command to download and install. So we are going to do it with the root user. Just exit out of the vagrant user and run the curl command. All these commands are available inside our GitHub repository, so don't forget to check it out. You can go ahead and run the install command to install this under the USR local bin, so it's available to all the users on this machine. All right, so this has been installed now. Now, in order to verify this, you can switch to the vagrant user and just run kubectl version. So if it's providing you the version of the kubectl, this means that the kubectl has been successfully installed on your machine. Next, we can actually check out the cluster info using the kubectl. So we can say kubectl cluster -info. It's going to print about the details about our cluster. So it shows that the Kubernetes cluster is running on this IP and the port number. Okay, and basically the core DNS is running on this one. Okay, now completed the prerequisite requirements. That is, we have installed the Docker container. We have also installed the minikube cluster, that is our Kubernetes cluster, and we have installed the kubectl, which is going to interact with the Kubernetes cluster. All right, so all the basic requirements has been completed now. Next, we are going to start with the Jenkins in our next video. So stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more of the similar videos. This is your host Ankit, and I'm going to end this video now. If you have any doubts, any queries, please ask them in the comment section and I will be reaching back to you. All right. Thank you everyone. Ending this video now.